we should start. So first of all, we want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is our first public meeting in this incarnation of this organization. So I think this is just a starting point. We want to see it grow from here. So tonight, as you can see from the program, we're going to start off by showing some documentaries on fluoride and the scientific evidence that opposes it, what things need to be considered. We'll be following that up with some question and answer and community discussion, so we invite all of you to speak up. We'd really like to hear from anybody that's had personal experiences with fluoride or problems with fluoride. It's important in several different ways. It's relevant to council, in fact, that if people come forward specifically with the problems that they're having. But secondly, we want to hear about it so that we can work together. So maybe I could just start out by saying a little bit about who we are and how we got started. This organization was started actually by Neil. Is Neil in the room right now? Or? Yeah. So Neil kind of got the ball rolling this time again, and he approached a few of us, and we got talking. And we said, you know, we think we really need to get organized and make this happen, just like we've seen happen in Calgary and Okotoks and Tabor recently. So we're the last standing island of fluoride in southern Alberta, and we think it's about time for a change. So you know, I think we could probably have a better discussion after we've watched these documentaries. There's a lot of food for thought in them, some really good information. So I think we'll start there. If you have any questions or comments, we are going to take just like a minute or two break between each one while we're setting up the next one. So feel free to interject. We do want to keep the schedule moving, but don't hesitate to speak up. Sometimes it's better to talk about something right after having seen it. So maybe before we start, though, can I just get a bit of a sense? How many people were aware of the detrimental aspects of fluoride before they came here tonight? Okay, so most people. Is there anybody that is unaware of some of the risks and problems associated with fluoride? Not really? I'm preaching to the choir? Okay, well that's good. I mean, that's a really good thing. I think this meeting here represents a core here in the community, and it starts from here. If we have information, we have a website with a pretty good resource base that we're adding to constantly, so everybody here will be able to use that as a reference when talking to friends, families, neighbors, and that's what it's all about. It's our thinking that we, you know, as probably all of you are aware, this issue's been before council several times, and it's been kind of locked in the stalemate pattern. So we think the solution is community education. The more everybody knows about this, the more they tell their friends, eventually that's going to trickle up, and council's going to have to respond. So this is where it starts right here, with us being informed and talking to others. So I guess we can start the first video. The first video is the problem with fluoride. It's a really simple kind of primer on the entire scenario. So we thought that would be a good place to start. Let's get the lights. So any thoughts on that one?
Has anyone tested Lethbridge water for anything besides fluoride, as in terms of arsenic, cadmium?
Have you had a contamination? Not to my knowledge. Neil, have you ever heard of anybody?
Well, we saw an assay that was done on different water supplies.
Yeah.
And it shows the same thing as what we said, about 23 to 25% concentration. Right. And it does have like mercury and lead and arsenic.
Well, what did we see, Sean? We saw a figure on was it arsenic?
Yeah.
Arsenic, yeah, in the hydrofluorosilicic acid is up to 35 parts per million.
So that's subsequently diluted into the water supply. So it's going to be at a fairly low level, because the fluoride is put into water here. They're adding about, I think it's 5 to 6 ppm in Lethbridge.
Yeah, with that though, like they were saying, is that there's no way to tell how many people have got how much.
No,
right?
It's the dosage is one of the key issues here. With any drug, one of the most important things is to control the dose, and dose is defined as milligrams per kilogram per day. So it has to do with your body size, and it has to do with how much you consume. So if you have a physical laborer working in the sun drinking 10, 12, 14 glasses of water a day, as opposed to a person that drinks 1 glass of water a day, they're getting 14 times as much as the other person. And then if you change body mass variables plus sex, gender, race, all these things, like they change your susceptibility levels, then dose is a huge issue, and that's where it comes out with babies in particular. So, yeah.
So you said that there's lobbyists behind this. Who's lobbying for the Lethbridge Council? Like, who's behind convincing them that this is a good thing?
Wow, that's a loaded question. You know, we would like to know, but at one point when there was a vote at Lethbridge City Council, and it was a really tight vote, the chief dental officer for all of Canada, Dr. Cooney, was flown in on taxpayer money to influence council's decision. So we're uncertain, but we know that Health Canada has vested interest in it for whatever reason, as does Alberta Health.
Alberta Health Services. Yeah.
Alberta Health Services on it.
And the local dental industry.
And Chinook too, and the dental industry and Chinook. And I think you had a comment for us.
Yeah, I just want to make, even the water fluoridation that is injected into the water system is not the same every day. It's the proper amount the first day, the second day it's more, the third day it's already over the limit and they have to change the orifice. Because the fluoride deteriorates the diameter of the orifice. It gets bigger, 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 bigger. Because it's a big fluctuation. It's not the same level. One day you have a high amount, next day you have a low amount.
This gentleman here actually worked in the Lethbridge City water treatment plant in the fluoridation department. So he has extensive interior knowledge about this. So did everybody hear that? That it's actually not even a constant meter dose, even if that was acceptable, because it's not. Because dose is always based on how much you consume per body weight. But then we have like further fluctuations as he's talking about. So it's really all over the map, and it's medication without your consent, which is the primary issue. I'll just take this guy here and I'll come back to you.
Does reverse osmosis remove it?
Well, okay, and that's another kind of complicated question. It does, if all things being equal, but the city of Lethbridge doesn't use chlorine as a principal residual disinfectant. They use chloramine. It's a chlorine ammonia compound. And chloramine is able to bypass normal charcoal pre-filters in reverse osmosis systems. And if it's able to bypass the pre-filter, then it causes premature degradation of the reverse osmosis membrane. So a normal membrane will last 3 to 5 years, but if you don't have a proper pre-filter to block the chloramine from getting through, then in a very short time you can have up to 30 to 40% leaching of fluoride through the membrane and higher if it goes further than that. And the shocking thing when I investigated it was that we couldn't find any water filtration companies in Lethbridge selling chloramine-specific water systems. Nobody had a chloramine pre-filter for the reverse osmosis. So, I mean, that's a huge issue. In other words, the membrane isn't performing as it's spec to do. You know, yeah, actually where I work, that's what I do for a job. It's one of the things I do is water filtration. So at Harvest Haven, we do sell spec filters that have chloramine pre-filters, but that's a really hot issue, and it's you know, it's of huge relevance. So normally reverse osmosis is a potential answer, but particularly in Lethbridge, because of the combination of chloramine and fluoride, we have vulnerability.
Sorry, again, is the county getting this as well? Is it just
Yes, part of the county is, because a lot of the county now has access to the municipal or the county water lines. It's a drip system where you get cistern. Yeah. You have a drip into your cistern. As far out as Iron Springs and Turin, they're drinking Lethbridge city water. So this is quite widespread.
Monarch's on their water too.
Monarch's on it now too. Okay, so the Lethbridge city water treatment plant was massively overbuilt, and I mean they had some plans that I thought Lethbridge would grow, but they also knew that they could expand and sell water out to the neighboring municipalities. So,
Mark, that last comment you stated about you working or you being involved in water,
right.
water cleaning
yes.
or whatever.
Yep.
I'm just dumbfounded as to why you're here then, because you seem like you've got a solution that you can sell to
right.
entrapped population,
right.
a hostage
Exactly.
You know, so I'm kind of going like, okay, what's this guy all about now?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's my evidence that I don't have any vested interest here.
Yeah.
It's entirely contradictory to
Yeah,
my
I
vested
just
interest.
kinda
I want to
found-
sell you a filter, but
No,
the
that's
reason
what I
the reason is because I would much rather not have to deal with fluoride. Fluoride is such a difficult contaminant to take out of water, and I kind of have to chase my tail when I try to provide a water filtration solution for you. Reverse osmosis is good, even with a chloramine pre-filter. Okay, that's good, but RO water doesn't have minerals in it, so it ends up stripping it demineralizes your body. So we can solve that. We can put a calcite post filter on it and rebalance the water. But then there's like other issues, and it's like slow and it's expensive, and I really, when I want to provide solutions for people, I don't want to like make them chase their tail. And so that's why I got involved in this. I know what fluoride is. I know how hard it is to take out.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I'll just take this lead and then we'll get into this.
Distillation is the only way to get fluoride out.
Right. Well, our reverse osmosis and distillation are both effective. Distillation, you have to be careful because some distillers, if they're not set up properly, any of the gases that come out like as volatilized chemicals, if they don't have an exterior vent, then it's gassing it off into your air in your room where you have your distiller. So you're breathing in the fluoride gas, which is actually more toxic for you than drinking it. So you have to be careful. And that's how I feel about water filtration, is that we should just not have to deal with this. I'll just take this fellow and then we'll.
Yeah, it's more of a comment though. It's my brother and I, we've done a lot of research on like water filtration systems for fluoride and everything else, and we looked into reverse osmosis, and in practicality, it's in our price range. It doesn't make sense, you know.
Right.
So we found a lot of gravity-fed filters that eliminate fluoride, eliminate all the pesticides, heavy
Right.
metals, all that, and the fluoride to pretty much non-detectable levels. You know,
What-
there is stuff you can get out there. You know, you just gotta do your own research. You know.
The Berkey water filtration system, gravity fed, does do that. You know what the hang up there is? They can't touch chloramine. So you have to run a separate chloramine filter before you even load it into your gravity fed system.
Mhm.
So that's how I feel. It's
Well, yeah, and
filtration.
the chloramine, that's it's chlorine in there, but it's the additive, so it keeps the chlorine from evaporating.
It's
right?
the ammonia compounding.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, I was just going to mention, I handed in an article at the back there when this gentleman was talking about the erosion of
Yes.
making
The orifices?
the
Yeah.
orifices bigger, is that there was a spill. There was
Yes.
an article about a spill on a cement pad, and it literally ate the cement. So that's how strong it is, so I can see why it eats the small little.
Yes, it's in case everybody can't hear that, just a comment on the nature of the hydrofluorosilicic acid and the concentration of it they're using when they bring it to the water treatment plant. It's so corrosive that there are very few things that can contain it. If you don't have a specially lined tank, like you were talking about, vessels lined with either Teflon or originally paraffin,
Eats to half-inch steel within 24 hours.
24 hours, a half-inch of steel, no problem, it'll eat through it. So that's what caused that leak, if I understood you right. There's a pinhole leak in the paraffin lining, and within, like overnight, they had a major spill. They had a half-inch hole in their tank. And when you spill this product on cement, it'll eat it, it'll etch glass, it'll go through all kinds of metals. And you have to call in like a hazmat response team to deal with it. It's super dangerous. And that's in our drinking water.
Does fluoride bioaccumulate in the body?
Yes, and that's where the danger is, and that's where a bit of the debate comes in. A lot of people that are naysayers on the toxicity or the danger of fluoride, they say, well, I've been drinking it this long, you know, if it was toxic, why aren't people dropping like flies? But it's cumulative toxicity that's the issue with fluoride. And as they're pointing out there, it's not just our water. Like depending on how much water you drink, you can accumulate that faster. But it's in so many other things: pesticides, reconstituted fruit juices, prepared foods, soups. So we have a huge exposure, and again, that goes back to that dosage issue. How can dose be controlled? It can't be, and so that's where it becomes a highly ethical, medical ethical debate too. I'll take you.
Is there a way to get it out of your body? Like once you realize what you're
Yeah.
doing,
Yeah.
stop it, but is there a way to reverse the effect?
Yes, there are. It's not easy though. There are different things that can help chelate and cleanse your body from that. I think Martin can comment on that a bit.
Just on that topic, it doesn't bioaccumulate in the same way that say lead and mercury do,
Right.
because it's not fat soluble. Most of the bioaccumulation effect is caused during bone growth.
Right.
So, and again, that's why the children, that's why they're getting fluorosis, because of early development. It's extremely difficult to purge from your bones, because there it sits bound to the calcium and the phos in your bones. But it isn't quite as difficult to get out of your bloodstream and your fat as, say, lead and mercury. But that being said, those are present when you're getting fluoridated. So
right. I mean, there's
just a bit of a difference there.
Yeah, there was a recent spill of hydrofluorosilicic acid in Korea at a Samsung cell phone factory, I believe it was. It was an electronics factory. And they had a spill, and some workers were sent in to clean up, and one of them died, and the other ones became gravely ill. And the surrounding city was affected because there was like volatilization of the gas, and they were having to monitor. Like, they had government officials testing the food in the fields. Like, it was that widespread, and they had a statistic in that article that said it takes that hydrofluorosilicic acid, once in your bone, once you've been exposed to it, it remains in your bone for 20 years. So, I mean, that's the issue that we're dealing with. Having said that, like Martin's pointing out, if your kidneys are properly functioning, question mark, then you supposedly filter it out. But that's where there's been some famous instances, and we have some in your literature pack that we gave you tonight. Whereas if fluoridated water is given to dialysis patients, then there's been death recorded because they're incapable of removing the fluoride as a healthy functioning person would.
It bioaccumulates extremely quickly.
Right.
If your kidneys aren't functioning.
Right. Right. So, one of the best things that, from what we can understand, of course, this isn't entirely pinned down as to what to do, but some of the trace minerals like selenium, iodine, boron, actually occupy the valence, like bond site, the parking site. They have similar electrical charges as fluoride, so they can preoccupy the parking space that fluoride would normally bond into. So having your body fully nutrified with those trace minerals is really important, which is the other thing I do for a day job, which is sell organic food. So I think that's part of what we need to do is we need to eat right. We need to maybe take some trace minerals, sea products, kelp, things like that, to help prevent damage, because we're exposed to these toxins even if we're careful.
And so with fluoride in the water, with all the irrigation goes on, like
Yes.
the parks and the
Yes.
gardens and so on, has there been any testing to see what it does? Does it change the composition of the soil?
Mm-hmm. It definitely does.
It would need to.
But I don't know that there are any tests done. But that's part of this issue here too, is the environmental impact. We pay $85,000 a year as taxpayers to put this in the drinking water, but most of it is not consumed as drinking water. 98 or 99% of it is used for irrigation, wash water, bath water, and so it goes directly into the river basin. So it's causing environmental harm, and it is an industrial pollutant when it's in the waterway, as the one gentleman from the EPA there was saying. There's no arguing that, but that's what we're doing by putting it in the drinking water.
Just to follow on from that, if not only are we consuming it, while we are having showers extend gone into steam, is it going into our pores and being taken into the body that way?
It is. It is, yeah. And filtering showers is an entirely even further complicated aspect, because you can't use a reverse osmosis unit very easily. You can have large-scale commercial units, but they cost way more than the average person can possibly afford. So there is a system I've seen developed in California, but it's a 7-foot tall media that you park beside your shower, so that your water can actually be fluoride free. And that's how much media it takes to properly filter out fluoride, so that on a lab test it's going to be like a negligible level. So what are we doing putting this persistent chemical into our water is what we have to come back and ask.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious about fluoride. Like you were saying, it's used for irrigation and such. Do the plants themselves absorb it And so, of course, if we eat those plants, then it's right back into us again,
Yes.
vicious
Yes.
cycle. Okay.
It's an issue. It's an issue. I mean, part of that too has to do with your soil nutrient profile.
Oh,
So if
of
it
course.
has the boron and the selenium and everything else, it's going to displace the fluoride. But if it's deficient in that, then the fluoride just
Oh.
occupies that site. So again, you know, we need
So
healthy
if you're
soil.
saying if you have healthy, like
Healthy
actual.
soil, it'll be helped.
Yeah.
But you know, there's no data that I know of that.
So if you conditioned your soil and had it done properly.
It should be better.
Yeah, it should be
In
better.
theory, but I don't know of any data.
There are plants that are more susceptible, right?
For
Like
leaching?
tea
Yes.
will absorb it more.
Yes, definitely. And I don't have any data on that. Maybe somebody else knows specifics, but there are plants that are going to be more apt to scavenge fluoride than others. Yes.
On that note, Mark, is beer safe?
Well, you should investigate the city where it's being brewed and see if they have fluoridated water or not, and that should make all your beer decisions right there.
Where has it been shown?
It's been released on the internet, and anybody that's interested in watching these again, they're available on YouTube. We can possibly even send out the links. I
We'll
think.
probably have them on our website.
Yeah, most of them are on the website, fluoridefreelethbridge.com, and we're going to be posting more. There's a couple of other really comprehensive ones there too.
So what's the next step? Where do we move from here?
Well, that's what we want to talk about after the videos, but that's where I think we all help each other, and we start to make networks and get this information more widely dispersed, get a conversation going, because council, you know, they can make a stubborn stance or entrenched stance if there's no pressure on them. But if their electorate starts to question them, and there's like a fire burning outside of City Hall, and they look out the window and see the fire, you know, there'll have to be a response. That's our strategy at this point, is to have a groundswell of awareness.
When you approached the council before, did you give them literature? Were they to read it? Did they read it?
Right. I wasn't part of that movement, but Neil can speak to that. And they were.
Actually, I was involved in bringing it up to City Council 2 years ago. And we had I call him an expert, come and speak. He was actually fluoride, where's the book?
Dr. Beck, Dr. James Beck.
James Beck. He came, I asked him to come down, and he came down and presented to City Council with a few other people. Dr. Dixon was here too. He's a practicing physician in Calgary as well. They came down, no charge, no nothing. They didn't want any money because they don't want it to look like it's a conflict of interest or anything. They presented this information to City Council, but at the same time, it felt like it was a bit of a setup because we had Dr. Cooney come from Ottawa. They flew him down. They had, I don't know how many dentists and people from, officials from Alberta Health Services, and they were speaking, you know, on the other side. And it was like 10 of them, 12 of them against like 2 of us.
So you're outnumbered, and also your time allotment was a lot less.
Right, we found out at the last minute that we were going to be put first, and the 12, 14 were going to put at the end. They were going to give us a half an hour. And I said, that can't possibly be true because all these other people are speaking. And I actually got them sort of to give us an hour. But that doesn't really help when you have a discussion. When you speak first, the people after you can always, you know, say anything they want, and the people, you know, they'll forget what the first people said.
Right.
So it was a huge setup.
Absolutely. No chance to rebuttal. But you know, we want to see things go differently this time, and we believe that it will with organization and networking power.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, and the City Council does not want to deal with it right now, and
No.
it's because they dealt with it 2 years ago. But that's just because people aren't standing up right now.
Right.
And that's what we want to do is raise the awareness to the average person so they realize, oh, there is an issue with water fluoridation.
Right. You know, and City Council can say they don't want to deal with it, but what is their mandated job other than to listen to feedback from the population?
Yeah, they're employees.
Again, you know, we want to stress that we're not interested in forcing no fluoride on anybody either. We want everybody to have freedom of choice. And if you want fluoride, you know, if the fluoride is left in the Lethbridge City water, there's no choice. But if it's taken out, there's an abundance of choice. You have toothpaste, you have mouthwash, you have fluoride drops. You know, you can access it whatever way you like. So we think this is about free choice. Everybody should have the right to choose what they think is right.
So with sort of fluoride, we understand the what, we know what it is and we know what it's doing.
Yes.
It's damaging your IQ, your bones, your teeth.
Yes.
Is anyone asking the why? Why are they damaging our teeth?
We're going to sound like conspiratorialists if we discuss that.
No, I'm just looking for an
Well,
explanation.
I think the best answer that I can give, and maybe somebody else can comment on this, is that it's entrenched wisdom. It's not wisdom. It's entrenched knowledge. It's been passed on in dental school. It's been passed on in medical school.
It's a sacred cow.
It's a sacred cow. You only know what you've been taught. And so when a dentist goes to school and he's taught the techniques and the knowledge that he is, if he's told that there's studies that support fluoride and it's a good thing that he needs to practice that, he just believes it. He doesn't question it. But there have been some very notable exceptions to that. We have, who's the dentist from New Zealand? From Auckland. He was the chief dental officer. And he, after a career of promoting fluoride, one day he said, I wonder what all the fuss is about these people opposing fluoride. Maybe I should take an objective look at the published scientific data on this. And now he's one of the world's strongest anti-fluoride lecturers. And then Dr. Lineback, that was just in this video we watched, at University of Toronto, same thing. He would have went through dental school. He was a proponent of fluoride, reviewed published literature. He says, my goodness, there's not one double-blind study ever published on the efficacy or safety of fluoride, but there are numerous independent studies proving the opposite. Some of them double-blind. He took an objective look at it. So I think that's what we're fighting against. It's just like it's the status quo. It's just like mercury. It's just like lead. Lead was status quo, and people were saying there's something wrong here, and there was huge resistance to it.
Just to follow up on that, because I can't see the reason being the why of nice teeth. Do you really think the government cares about our teeth?
Right.
We want our citizens
Right.
to have really nice smiles. That's why we do it.
Well, I don't know. Is there a financial incentive? It's a little hard to say. Do you have a comment on that, Mark?
Yeah. I guess the thing that you really have to realize at the end of the day is that fluoride, even though we don't hear about it, when people hear fluoride, they think water, they think toothpaste. But fluoride, for the last 100 years, has been the industrial pollutant that has been grounds for more lawsuits than any other industrial pollutant. Like this is on the minds of industry every day. There's a whole group of people called the fluorine lawyers, and they deal with fluoride damage litigation all day long, every day, because you need fluoride to smelt metal, which means you need fluoride to make cars, you need fluoride to make the industrial agriculture go. So part of the big issue here is that if fluoride gets a bad name, then suddenly people are going to be very aware, they're going to be very upset if fluoride is found in their lake water. They're going to be upset if fluoride is found in the air.
Right.
And that isn't what industry wants.
There's a really good reference material on what Martin's talking about. It's a book called The Fluoride Deception. It's written by a man named Christopher Bryson. You can find excerpts of it online. You can find a YouTube video about it online where he's speaking, and he follows the entire history of fluoride and how there was an actual kind of shell game switcheroo for the image of fluoride, where what was once an evil, they turned it into a beneficial, good-looking, so that it was a way of protecting themselves.
The most important, it's a fact. One of the scariest things about the whole thing is that the American Dental Association was started by 3 founding people, and one of them was a representative for General Motors and DuPont. Now, why would they care about your teeth? The American Dental Association was founded.
Vested interest, yeah.
So, I know that we risk sounding like a conspiracy, but we can't ignore the facts either. Okay? They were present.
Yeah, no, this was leading on to the one guy's question about why. Well, in the video it showed why the byproduct, the fluoride, they would have thrown out, but now they can actually sell it and make money.
Right. Did everybody hear that? I mean, of course, there's a financial vested interest of the companies that would normally have to pay to dispose of it. I think I mentioned that Martin had checked with the Alberta hazardous waste plant in Swan Hills. And
the amount of fluoride that we go through in a year would cost about $50,000 to dispose of, and instead, they're selling it for about $85,000.
So if you add those two together, that's the figure, that's why it's relevant, so. And actually, 50,000 is a lowball estimate, because that's if you have pure hydrofluorosilicic acid, that's the cost. But if there's any other contamination in it, like arsenic, lead, cadmium, radioactive strontium, then the price goes up from there. Questions or comments?
How do you sell them?
Yeah, well, I mean, in that last video there, a good example of the lady, the horse owner, she had meetings, and she was getting really high percentages of people in her small town, and eventually they had to listen. Somebody in the back?
How does the fluoride affect the babies of the nursing nurses that are drinking that fluoride?
The question is, how does fluoride affect babies that are being nursed? Less than it would if they're being fed bottles, for sure. The mother's body acts as a biological filter to prevent the baby from getting too much fluoride. But there's questions, there's a lot of variables in there. How healthy is the mother? How well is her kidney functioning? How much can she filter before she lets some through to the child? But that alone is evidence there as to why it's so absolutely necessary to get it out of the water for children that aren't being breastfed, that are being fed formula that's being reconstituted with tap water, which is just a travesty. And that's related to lower IQ bone cancer, thyroid dysfunction, osteoporosis, arthritis, a whole list of problems. So, and what even if you're breastfeeding, what about the bathing water? So and then what other things when they get older? They start to drink a reconstituted fruit juice, or yes, sir?
Yeah, no, it's just a comment. For like, if we all go home, we shouldn't just go home and think, oh yeah, okay, well, we learned a lot here.
Right.
Try to get it out to as many people as you can. Friends, family. It will spread.
Yes.
It will, and that's like what he said. That's how we're gonna stop it. Is from everyone getting up and getting on it.
Exactly.
So obviously, kind of what I've heard here today, this is my first time being here. We have on one side so-called health professionals that are entrenched.
Yeah.
And yet, from what I've heard from you, Mark, is disseminating a logical, scientific position that stays completely away from the hysteria, of all the conspiracy and the hysteria. What you believe and why you believe it is a personal choice.
Right.
However, for a group that wants to influence and educate, like how does one group of people such as ourselves come together and agree on actions and agree on information that we need disseminated that A, will not offend people or make them feel threatened, and B, not undermine the positions that our so-called health professionals feel that they are entrusted with.
Yes.
So it sounds like it's a really kind of a delicate situation that we're in.
You hit the nail on the head. And I think that's why all of us, if we become advocates for, against fluoridation, we have to be careful in what we say, because, it's too easy to have us written off as just a fringe group. To be frank, the mayor of Lethbridge, even though we wrote him a very logically structured, scientifically backed, clean letter, the response really was, you're trusting like fringe Google science to drive your opinion. I trust medical advisors. So, and that's a predicted response, and that's okay. We can deal with that. But I think what we have to do is by challenging the medical authority, saying, okay, if you're telling me that you're relying on that, that's good. Can you provide us one peer-reviewed, double-blind study that proves the efficacy or safety of fluoride? Can you provide us data on this? Can you provide this? And you know what? It doesn't exist. And that's even a wake-up call for medical officials. And I don't know where it'll tip. There's been a lot of turnarounds with medical professionals when they're forced to actually dig themselves and say, what do I premise this on? because it's all hearsay. I mean, it's hearsay. They can say it's hearsay for us. Somebody told you on Google that it's bad, but really that's all it is for them because they're not familiar with the city. So I think it's all about facts, and the facts are available. We actually have direct contact with Dr. Lineback and Dr. Connett. They were both featured on that Professionals' Perspectives, and they're supporting us. They're willing to give us whatever help we need. Dr. Beck in Calgary is willing to come down and speak. So we have access to these highly respected individuals that won't take any errant side streets on marginal evidence. Anything they say will be based. And I think that's how we have to approach it. Is we have to break down the credibility of who they're trusting.
Just piggybacking off that point, I think you raised some very excellent issues. If we can create a concise list of evidence and be very specific and give people the information, say, well, this isn't just me saying it, look it up, make the decision for yourself. Right. How do we get that information out? Can we use flyers? Can we go door to door?
Right.
A lot of marketing people talk about this tipping point where, I don't know the percentage, but the percentage of the population, once that a certain number is reached, it tips, and then it becomes almost trendy to follow it or research it and, for lack of a better word, believe in it.
Yeah.
How do you reach that tipping point? What would be the best strategy?
Well, I think that's something that we can all offer input into tonight, but there's some really good precedents for that. The current mayor of Calgary reportedly won his election through social media. And so social media is of course a tool that we can be using. That's part of the reason that we invested the time and energy into developing the website, fluoridefreelethbridge.com. We think that can be like a central bank of information that you can refer people to. And the other thing I think is that we don't want to get too bogged down in the scientific argument, because really we don't need to. And that's where things can kind of get hung up. This really doesn't even have to be about science. This is about ethics. This is about choice, and that's something that they can't argue. It's like it's your freedom of choice that's being trampled on. And if we keep the argument clean and very concise with those points, that it's, I think the three-point summary they had was that it's ineffective, unnecessary, and unethical. And that's really the essence of the argument. But I think the biggest focal point, and this is what Dr. Beck from the UFC, retired UFC professor, advised us when we started this, is he said, you have to present science to give yourself credibility, and there's lots of it to present, but don't get bogged down there. Keep it about the ethics, because that's really what's on the table here to be debated. And it's clean, nobody can argue with it.
How did Tabor and Calgary and Windsor go about it?
In various ways. I guess is the best way to answer that. And I think there's some people that are more knowledgeable than I am on that.
Calgary, it took a lot of work. It took them about 10 years. And a lady named Faye Ash, she sort of headed things up and started going from there, getting into schools, getting public awareness. Basically, it was public awareness. Finally, the city councilors.
Yes, we have Facebook, we have the resources, and we have Twitter and stuff, but I guess I'm a bit old school in that I think that if we had a list of all the people in the room, if they wanted to put their names down, and so that we can keep in contact with each other.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we do have a list at the back that we hope everybody feels good and free to sign up on, and that'll help us to continue giving you information, updates on what's going on, and also we're planning several more meetings.
Well, we want to have something every month.
Right. And do we want to talk about the Falls agenda, Marilyn, yet, or is it okay? All we can say is that we want it to be an inclined plane of activity. So this is the start, but we want to build on each successive meeting, and we're looking at having other speakers come in. Like Dr. Beck has told us that any time we want him to come down, he's willing to speak. He's one of the co-authors of the Case Against Fluoride. It's kind of like the manual across North America and the world right now for why fluoride's bad.
What about that doctor in Toronto,
Dr. Lineback? Yeah.
He was put out of practice for what he stood.
Yeah.
Has he been reinstated?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, can he?
Yeah.
But he'd be a
He's
better
actually,
one to
Dr.
convince.
Lineback, we've had some conversation with
Yeah,
him,
he
remember?
said that he isn't, he has more time on his hand now, he's not as involved with his work. So we haven't been in touch with him as far as content.
But he has hinted that,
He's
that
been
he has time.
reinstated, though.
And Dr. Conant, who's the principal author of the case against fluoride, he's indicated that he's ready and willing to come. He actually has a budget to travel, so, and he's willing to help our movement.
And he'll be glad to debate anyone.
Well, he'd be glad to debate even like the head dental officer, Dr. Cooney, if we can find a way to entice Dr. Cooney to come for debate. And that's actually the little agenda piece there wasn't just lit out of the bag. But
Almost worth paying his flight here.
it is. And so that's really one of the things we want to do in the fall, just before the election, is if we could have a debate at the university between Dr. Conant and possibly Dr. Cooney, and have all the media attention that we could possibly get on it, and attendance, and it would be a huge event. Yeah.
Yes, what I was gonna ask, is that rancher there, she was talking about addressing the water board.
Yes.
So the situation's a little different.
It is.
Now, can we not approach or invite members of council to meetings? Or-
Yes.
Okay, because just
Yes.
going there, you're gonna get the same
Yes.
probably problem happening over and over
Yes.
again. You get to talk for 10 minutes.
That's right. No, you're right, it's different. Here, council is the relevant body that we need to deal with. And we have extended invitation. We'll see. I mean, of course, we maybe don't have enough momentum or visibility to make them have incentive to come to a meeting like this. We do want them to attend meetings like this.
Yeah.
And we're also contemplating right now setting up some personal appointments and having one-to-one discussions with them. Yeah.
This manual you're talking about?
Yes.
Do you have a link for that on your website?
I do, and there's a copy of it on the table back there. So I don't know if it's available in e-book format, but you can take a look at it there, and it's easily available through Chapters or any online.
So it's a pretty big thing.
The library doesn't have
Right
a
there.
copy. I asked them where it's public, if you want to ask the library.
Okay.
So it's chock full of like all the scientific data. Again, and it examines all the arguments, and it says, okay, pro-fluoride, this is how the science goes. What do we need to consider?
Mark, isn't that book available, The Fluoride Deception?
It's
Isn't it available
available
on
this
the
library.
internet?
The fluoride deception, I don't know that it is. There's an interview with Christopher Bryson. There's like a 30-minute documentary on
This
on it.
one is an hour and...
Some?
Yeah, it's an hour
Yep.
and some. It's still a hidden agenda, and it's fluoride.
Yep.
So, and I don't know, I'm just gonna confirm if this is the right.
And then there's also on our website, there's a recently released documentary that we debated showing tonight, but it's quite long. It's called Fluoride Gate, and it's very detailed. So if you go to our website, you can find a link to that.
Mark, some of the councillors meet at certain places.
Yes.
For example, at LSCO, the senior center.
Yep.
members.
Yes.
What's his name? Jeff
Kaufman?
Kaufman
Yep.
meets, and I'll take some material to him.
Okay.
I'll take some from here
Okay.
tonight.
Sure.
Because he was the one that, I was given a list by Neil to
Right.
phone.
Right.
And I think I phoned 4 or 5
Yes.
council members, just to remind them before the vote,
Right.
because they forget.
If public opinion says don't stop what we're doing, then they will vote against it.
Exactly.
And that's what happened last time. But there were some that they voted for what was right.
Yes.
But the other ones voted for what, they look around, no, I don't think people are gonna like that, so I'm not gonna do that.
And Mark, that's how I got involved when those running for council came to the senior center to meet
Yes.
the people.
Yes.
And one of them said, oh, you're the second person mentioning
Yes.
about fluoride, and Neil was the other.
Yes.
And that's how it got going on
Yes.
councillors.
That's critical.
So we
Those
should
sort of
reach
contacts.
them before.
Yes.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Can I say something else?
Yep.
I'm hearing a question here that is a silent question. That is, people would like to help. There are people here that would like to know how to be involved, how they can contribute. Can we make some suggestions as to the many things? You can tell us about a place where we might be able to get a meeting hall where it's not going to cost us as much, if anything. We're working with printers now who have been gladly giving us free literature. We're trying to get whatever way we can to help. We need foot soldiers to get handouts distributed anywhere and everywhere that you can. And you may have lots of ideas. Just bring them forth to us, and we'll try and incorporate them. We'll try to pass them on to others, so that we can work as a team and get this really going. We don't have a lot of time. We really don't.
A lot of ground to cover.
And I believe we can do it. I believe that the battle is won. We just have to fight it.
Yeah.
The battle is won, and it's going to be helping a lot of people in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate everybody coming. This has been super. I mean,
yeah.
And so this is a starting point.
Yes,
and,
that's right.
And you know, you've got influence on people, you know, and we're hoping that will happen.
Did you have a comment?
Oh, I was going to say, I could definitely help you out and stuff. I'm trained to be the administrator of the Youth Club, and we go around all around Southern Alberta.
Okay,
getting,
great.
Flyers and stuff, so we can just add an extra one to what we're doing.
Great, that'd be excellent. Let's talk. So we're just closing in on our time here. I guess maybe other members of the steering committee can add anything to this that they want, but we are planning another meeting at the Lethbridge Community College. The venue is a little tentative right now, but it looks like it'll go probably the beginning of March. The university around the same time, maybe a little bit later. Then we're planning maybe a West Side Library presentation a little bit later in spring. And we're also considering an activity to get out on the town and talk to people this summer, which if we have volunteers that want to help us, it's maybe a bit of a humorous thing. We'll have some people in some hazmat suits trying to hand out Lethbridge City water with the warning sign on it.
I think it's Dante, one fluoride, one clean.
Right, that's what we do.
Which one do you want to get done?
Right, and it's we'll have the hydrofluorosilicic acid warning on it and whatnot. So there's different ways just to get some attention, but that's kind of our long-term perspective at this point. So if anybody thinks they can, wants to participate or has questions, just contact us. We'll be happy to.
I'd like to hear more from this.
Yes.